So is non-duality a philosophy or religion? I think I have to look up what actually philosophy is. I mean, I know what my interpretation of it is, but I just want to read what is Wikipedia's, like the general consensus. Philosophy, literally love of wisdom, is the study of general and fundamental questions about existence, knowledge, values, reasons, mind, and language. Such questions are often posed as problems to be studied or resolved. The term was probably coined by Pythagoras. Philosophical methods include questioning, critical discussion, rational argument, and systematic presentation. Classic philosophical questions include: is it possible to know anything and to prove it? Oh, the camera went off apparently. So to me, philosophy, non-duality is a philosophy, not a religion. So if you look at the term philosophy, like that is what non-duality is. Whereas a religion, let's just look up Wikipedia, what a religion is. Whereas religion is a cultural system of designated behaviors, practices, morals, worldviews, texts, sanctified places, prophecies, ethics, or organizations that relate to humanity, to supernatural, to transcendental or spiritual elements. However, there is no scholarly consequences over what precisely constitutes a religion. Different religions may or may not contain various elements ranging from divine, sacred things, faith, a supernatural being or supernatural beings, or some sort of ultimate and transcendence that will provide norm, power and powers for the rest of life. Religion practices may include rituals, sermons, sacrifices, festivals, feasts, trances, initiations, funerary services, metamorphonical services, meditation, prayer, music, art, dance, public services, or other aspects of human culture. Religion have sacred histories and narratives which may be preserved in sacred scriptures and symbols and holy places that aim mostly to give the meaning to life. Religion may contain symbolic stories which are sometimes said to by followers to be true, that have the side purpose of explaining the origin of life, the universe, and other things. Traditionally, faith, in addition to reason, has been considered a source of religious beliefs. There are over 10,000 distinct religions worldwide, and 84% of the world's population is affiliated with one by 5 large religion groups, namely Christian, Islam, Hindu, Buddhism, folk religion. So it goes on and on, like describing the differences. Not the differences, it goes on describing what religion is. The only way in which it's related to religion to me is that there is some sort of shift that happens, whereas in philosophy there's not a shift that's talked about. So in non-duality there is a shift from being someone, from being a limited entity to being no one. And in religion they were saying that there is a something that transcends. That's the only part in which I see it fitting with religion. But maybe that's to do with my beliefs and ideas about religion. To me, religion is a group of people that have practices and ideas and faith and belief systems, and they all come together and they all work towards something, and they all have these ideas in common. And to me, that's got nothing to do with non-duality. I think it happens in non-duality. I think that there's lots of organizations that try to make it into a religion so that people go to practice and people form a group, and people hold ideas together and belief systems together. They might even say in the group that they're not doing that, but they clearly are doing that. They have ways of being and interacting together. They have this belief system of consciousness of it being better than other ways of life, of living together, of community. Whereas philosophy doesn't contain that. Philosophy is just questioning what you believe to be true. And something magical can happen when you question what you believe your reality to be. Like what you think this life is, there is something magical underneath. Our concepts and our ideas limit us, but it's got nothing to do with a group, a political system, or people coming together. Often people muddle it up because they don't know how to live their life in this society, especially in Western cultures where we've changed so much in the last 100 years. People are sort of kicked out of home and told to live, and they don't know how to live anymore. They don't know what the right thing is, whether it's to marry, have kids, to take a job in a big company, to start up an own business, to live off grid. There's so many options for Western people, and throughout life I can imagine that religion and culture began to get like closely intertwined because we don't know how to live ultimately, and so to follow other people is comforting to us. To be told how to live, to be told what the meaning is, to be told what your purpose is in life is relaxing for you. And for there to be a group or a community that all practice that together, it can create this sense of family. And that's beautiful. I can imagine that's a very beautiful experience, to have this sense of family that all believe in the same thing and all working towards the same thing and all moving towards something. And especially if it's got nice values, I can imagine that's really beautiful. But that's not what non-duality is about. Non-duality isn't about how to live. It's not about a group of people working together. And mixing up these two ideas is how in the past we've got in trouble with religion becoming political and like our wars against each other. I'm not saying it's the only reason for wars, but it's this idea of difference, and it's the idea of like my group versus your group, and my beliefs are more true than your beliefs. I don't mean that a group of people that in non-duality can't come together to live together and to do things together, but just seeing that there isn't a non-dual way of life. There isn't like the right way of living in non-duality. It's not like Christianity. It's not like other religions where it's subject-object, that you are someone in relationship to the future, that you're somebody that's moving towards something in the future, that you're somebody in relationship to God, to something out there that has to work hard, that has to do certain things, do certain practices to arrive somewhere. And all of these groups always contain this idea of you versus the world arriving somewhere. And that's a political thing. That's a social thing. That's got nothing to do with religion. But it's often tied together, and often a lot of these groups become more about cultural and social elements rather than the truth of what's in the background, predominantly because most people are afraid of their lives. They're afraid of living their life and doing what they want and desiring, because they're afraid to step out of the box and be different. Or maybe they are different, maybe they do step out of the box to an extent, but then they're afraid of loneliness. So they're driven back to becoming part of a group, and then driven back to this mentality that my spirituality or that my philosophy is something that I arrive to in the future. You're never going to arrive at non-duality. You're never going to find a group of people in which you can have open-minded discussions and non-dual conversations, and you'll become more enlightened because of it. I think that's a fantasy of most people, that you want to be with more enlightened people, and if you were with more enlightened people, then you would be more free. And this is a fantasy. This isn't what non-duality is talking about. Non-duality is the absolute destruction of your concepts. It's asking like all the questions of what you believe, like what you take to be true, and just throwing them away. It's not true, it's not true. And what is left? Most of the time our mind is always set on hunting, on what you can achieve and what you can get, what you can take from this life. And so when you begin to get into non-duality, you want to make it into something that you can achieve and something that you can get, and something that can be about the production of money or the production of your livelihood. So this is when this religion and this group mentality takes over, like making money as a group, like creating a church, a religion, a ashram, a society, which can sell cups or posters or books and make money, and it can be about a way of life. And then in your mind you think you're doing something great for society, or that you're doing something for the group in order to promote non-duality or the religion, but that's got nothing to do with non-duality. And I suspect all religions have non-duality at their source, but your living circumstances, you being more comfortable in life, isn't connected. So just see that. That you're afraid of how to live your life. So that's not got anything to do with non-duality. A lot of the problems come down to, in the human world, like how to live your life, like why you've become unhappy in life is because the way that you've interacted with life, and you've focused on always trying to get pleasure, and then that's been like ramped up by the idea that it's in housing, it's in living together, or it's in certain community, or it's in having a husband or wife, it's in having kids, it's in having a retirement plan, it's something in the future. And there's this desperate fear about fitting into that group, about being protected and looked after. And I know you know what I mean, but you don't want to admit this because you don't want to address this. But it's the source of suffering, the saucy sauce, that juicy, nice blob of ketchup. It's the saucy sauce. So what most people are running around this planet doing, being afraid of, is survival. And often being part of a religious group is about survival. Like, your purpose on this planet is to survive. And normally this is a fundamental question which baffles especially a lot of Westerners, because they don't have the struggle to survive anymore. So then they're like, what is the point to being alive? What's the point to my survival? And your point actually is to survive. But you don't believe me because you think there must be a bigger meaning. It must be like helping the world or discovering who you are. There must be a deeper reason for being alive. On the human level, the basic instinct is to survive, is to earn money, depending on the society you're in, if you have money, or to earn money, to collect food, to eat, to have shelter, to survive. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that movement towards wanting to survive. Often what happens to us, though, is because of our identity, because of this person that we believe we are, so this image that we hold of ourselves, so this idea that we hold, because of this idea, what happens is that we create all these fake images about what the meaning of our life is or should be. And we create narrative about ourselves which doesn't allow us to feel our natural instinctual purpose. So on the basic level, your natural level is to survive. And survival means food, the collection of food, being part of a group and community, creating children. It's these very basic things, like an animal. I know that most people are like, ding, ding, ding. And I see that when I begin to talk about this stuff, I do see it on YouTube. I see the statistics that people turn off when I begin to talk about this survival element, because it's really, really offensive to your story. How can it be that your life is about survival? My life must be about something greater. And this is when you create all these fantasies and there's religions about God and being good and like saving all the others from their sins, all these types of fantasies. But just come back and just listen to what I'm saying practically. So you have this natural desire to survive, and it doesn't mean that the natural desire to survive is being an asshole. Part of what we are as humans, which is super beautiful, is that we're community animals, and we do have this natural instinctual drive to protect and to serve others, which is super beautiful. We have this creative mind that can think of lots of creative ways in which to survive, to help other people, to help our environment, to help animals. So it's not like, I'm not talking about selfishness, but we have this natural desire to survive. And then what we have on top of this is our idea of ourself, which is formed for so many years around this ego, this identity. And the ego believes that the purpose of its life, so this illusory sense of self, this illusory I, believes that my purpose in life is to maintain the maximum amount of pleasure I can and to avoid pain as much as possible. Again, that's not conscious, so you might not see that or recognize that in yourself, but when you begin to pay attention to the body and you begin to see what's actually happening, you'll realize that there is this dynamic inside of you that is desperate to maintain pleasure. Let me give you examples of maintaining pleasure. Pleasure could be the idea of helping other people. Pleasure could be the idea of this God in the future that you're going to meet one day and that you're going to do all these good deeds for, and you're going to combat evil. Pleasure could be watching TV, eating food, belief systems that you hold with friends, moaning with friends, telling people what assholes people are in your life. Like, this is a pleasure. This releases endorphins in your body. Pleasure can be surfing the internet. Pleasure can be like posting lots of photos about yourself in very sexy positions with puffed up lips and people ticking it. Pleasure can be food, eating, drinking. So just think about what it is that you want in your life, and you'll notice that it's always about pleasure on the human level, always about getting pleasure. And what we do is we determine our meaning by pleasure. It's not a conscious thing again, but We see that a meaningful life is one that's contained lots of pleasure. That is total illusion. That's a mind, that's a made-up idea. That's a philosophy that people have created and clung to and believe that that's truth. That's not truth. It's a fantasy. It's got nothing to do with this moment. Right here, what's happening now, it's totally irrelevant, the meaning of your life, these 80 years in which you've lived, the 40 years in which you've lived, but there's 80 years that you've got to live, and that you've got to have a meaningful life, and what that means is more power than others, bigger house than others, nice holidays, lots of good food, successful children, lots of money, blah, blah, blah. Nobody thinks like that a good, well, successful life is somebody that worked in the box office at the theatre and was on basic wage and had a very simple apartment. Nobody thinks that's a good life. Or somebody that works in the laundrette or something. And that this is absolute lie by the mind. It's an illusion that wealth in some way is more meaningful than poverty. But notice how we're deeply connected to this idea that money is our purpose and that good things and pleasure is our purpose. Even if we're not conscious of it, it's subconsciously happening in our culture all the time. So, philosophy, back to philosophy. So, you could say currently that science is our new religion. You could say also that the internet is our new religion in society. Like we believe this to be true, or money is our new religion. But non-duality certainly isn't a religion. If you really understand what it means nothing. It leaves you as nothing. It's not about you. It's the only philosophy that I've ever heard, or concepts that I've ever heard, or anything that I've ever heard that is absolutely not about you surviving in some way. It's not about you getting more money. It's not about you being more beautiful, more successful, more happy. It's about remembering something of what is. It's beyond the person. It's completely not a personal thing. To the person, it's absolutely irrelevant, because to the person, what you're looking for is pleasure. What you're looking for is something that adds to you, and this doesn't add to you. But that's impossible for you to imagine, and if you really comprehended that, you'd be like, fuck this, I'm off to the guy next door who offers me something where I transcend, and then I'm in permanent bliss and ecstasy, and have tantric lovemaking with my friend, and blah, 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 blah. This really doesn't offer you anything. And that's what's so spectacular about non-duality. And that's why it's totally unconditioned love. Because it's nothing bound to this world. If it was something about you getting there, then it would be instantly put into money. It would instantly be put into something for us to buy, something that we had to work for. There'd be power struggles over it. There'd be arguments over it. Whereas non-duality is not about that, which is super, super beautiful. So the reason that I say non-duality is a philosophy, because what it does is it tries to point out the illusion of what you believe to be true. This is all like your process, but then you'll begin to be pointed out, or it begin to be pointed out that even you is an idea arising. And so it's not really your process, because who process is it? Like, so the deepest question is, who is you? Who are you? Who is this person at the bottom experiencing of all of this? But there's lots of ideas that you believe, like this belief that non-duality is a religion in some way, that you need to be with non-duality people, that you need to live in a non-duality house, that you need to have a guru, that you need to travel to India, that you need to do things to practice to get to non-duality. that is ideas. There was an idea that I think I was talking about. Oh yeah. And even the idea that what you're striving for on the human level is about pleasure or is about money or survival, even that is difficult for you to hear and difficult for you to know because you can't feel it. When you can feel it in your body, you'll know it to be true. I think you can feel it if I say to you, you're afraid of being lonely. So a lot of people are afraid of this loneliness. And this is something they imagine, this loneliness that they're going to get in the future and that they've got to work hard to avoid. So the loneliness is connected to survival. The reason that we're afraid on the human level to be alone is because we can't survive alone. If we're kicked out of this group, we don't have anyone that can help us if we're ill. We don't have anyone that can listen to us if we're emotionally upset. We don't have anyone that can make us feel secure. We don't have anyone that can bring us food if we can't get food. We don't have any company to reflect back ideas and to talk to. And reflecting ideas means that we grow our knowledge and grow our understanding of our environment. We grow our knowledge about ourselves and the way that we can think about things. We like communicating is super important in our society because firstly we're growing from each other, so we use each other to be creative about the way we think, so it helps us expand our knowledge. And like it's much better to have like 10 people thinking about something than just one person, because as long as all of the people have been thinking about that thing a long time and you're not constantly being pulled back by somebody's stupidity, as long as it's like already at quite a high level. So all your instincts to be around people is about survival. What is love? Can you actually love someone? Like guilt's not love. Feeling guilty if you have kids, or feeling concerned or feeling worried about them, that's not love. That is what it is. In the moment it's arising, it's a guilt. Feeling that you've not done enough for them or feeling scared about their future, that's not love. Love is a feeling of beauty, a feeling of expansion that happens in the chakra, in the heart chakra. So guilt and feeling insecure about them or worried about them, that isn't love. Worrying about someone isn't love. Being afraid not to be with someone because you'll be lonely isn't love. Feeling overly ecstatic about somebody loving you. So when you fall in love, even though there can be qualities of true love in there, so when you fall in love with someone, it's often a massive high because that other person is validating your insecurities. So when you fall in love, you suddenly feel worthy to somebody. You feel like somebody sees you. You feel like somebody hears you. You feel like you've got connection. So all of these things that you feel when you're falling in love, when you get that ecstatic feeling, is actually because they're completing a part of you that's missing. So that can't be love. How can you truly love another if it's because they're giving you something which completes you? That's not truly loving another. That's using them to fulfill your desires and to fulfill your insecurities. So love isn't a negative feeling in any way. Feeling love someone because you can't live without them, that's not love. That doesn't, I'm talking about this well-being, like the feeling sensation of love, the actual feeling of it. So you know when you love someone because you have that feeling towards them. It's not a selfish feeling where it's based on when they treat you a certain way or when they do certain things. And the way that you can know if it's a selfish feeling is it can turn to hate really quickly. If they don't give you attention, if they don't give you affection, you suddenly really hate them because who do they think they are to take something away from you? So obviously it's based on the way they treat you. Like it's based on not the way they treat you, but what they give you in the moment. Like love isn't something based on something, it's unconditioned love. But often we don't know our body well enough to see all of this. So we're confused, we're in this fog, we're in this mire or this illusion of everything we think. So what we think is that we can have all types of things. We think that people should give us attention. We think that our parents should treat us in a certain way. We think our parents should love us. We think that our kids should behave in a certain way. We believe that we should be a certain way when we're interacting with people. We believe we've got this image of what we should be like as a mother, the image of what we should be like as a father. And then we try to live up with that, and it confuses our feelings right now. And we get all these illusions and all these lying stories that are going on. So you get lost in fog. So say if you've got a strong theory that you need to be a perfect mother, and then say if somebody implies or gives you the feeling you're not a perfect mother, then what you'll do is you'll go to a good friend and you'll moan about that person and talk about what a bitch that person is. And it's not that that person is actually a bitch or that that person has any inherent quality. It's that it made you feel insecure, so then you go to someone else to make you feel secure again. And we're constantly lost in this fog, whether it be at work, with our kids, with our husbands, of what we believe to be true. And all of this is based on survival, but we've got a very complicated survival compared to like dogs and other mammals. Like ours is a lot more complicated because we can think about our behavior, we can think about ourselves, and we can think about the other out there. So then what I'm saying is that non-duality isn't for that person in a way, in any way, and isn't about that person in any way, and isn't about satisfying that person. So then what is non-duality? It's so hard to say what it is. It's not really something that I can tell you in the positive. I can say to you what it's not, like this is illusion, this is illusion. But it's this essence, it's this moment, it's the simplicity of being. And it's an energetic shift from being an illusory character, so being something you believe, to being what you are, which is this moment, which is what you've always been. It's hot today. I see that I'm sweating in the camera. I certainly feel hot. Um, so non-duality isn't for you. It's got nothing to do with you. And you just got to be realistic. Like, what are you in this for? Like, obviously, you is always in this for you. So you is always about you achieving something and you getting somewhere. And just be honest about that. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's something else that resonates with this, that knows this, that's got nothing to do with a human aspect. That it's about this empty looking and this sense of being alive, these two qualities are always there in every experience. And then when there's a resonance, the person can kind of like remember that or feel that, and then the person seemingly gets motivated by that only because it sees that as the next best thing, as the next pleasurable thing to get. But then the person begins to realize on the human level that, yeah, what I'm looking for isn't in this and that. It isn't in work, it isn't in women, it isn't in men, it isn't in relationships, it isn't in kids, it isn't in big houses. There is something else. Okay, so begin to answer questions.